All right, everybody. Thank you for everybody that's been downloading the Detroit Sports Podcast. To support us, we'd love for you to go check out DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's the hub for our podcast. You can check out 24/7 online deals. You can save money on car rentals. You can check out the DSP shop. You can buy tickets. Anything at all regarding Detroit sports, you can find at DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's also the place where you can go to download the DocNJock program. Thank you guys for your support. Check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's the free and easy way to help us continue to provide great sports content. www.DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Thank you in advance.
We appreciate y'all.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
All I want to know is if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
I said, are you strong? They said, I'm strong if you strong. And I said, we strong then.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Darren McCarty gets his shots in at Claude Lemieux. And look who came all the way out to try to help. Patrick Waugh. Oh, my goodness.
You are listening to the Doc and Jock Show on the Detroit Sports Podcast.
All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 76 of the Detroit Sports Podcast, the Doc and Jock Sports Program. I am the Doc, John McAroon. Joining me, my favorite co-host, similar to the Patriots, has deflated balls, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
You're such a douche. You know what, though? Before we start talking sports, I want to sit there. I want to cover something. So I went grocery shopping the other day, right?
What the hell is that about?
Because the wife asked me to, and I'm a good husband some of the times. Not all the times, but some of the times. I'm quite average. So I went and picked some things up for her, right? So I go through the checkout line. I go to the little the self-service one because the lines were way too long. So I'm sitting there checking out, and I go to ring up and cash out. And as I do you ever get all those coupons that come out of the little vending machine thing? And it's like you hit like the retard lottery because it's for all kinds of stuff that you don't use or that you'll never use. It's like for the off-brand of soap. I don't really know what it is. It's like a piece of charcoal that you rub on your body to get clean. You're never going to buy this stuff in a million years. But the thing's going to give you 6 of these coupons. And you got from now until eternity to use them. Instead of giving you something useful, like I use Dial soap. So instead of giving me a coupon for Dial soap to save 20 cents off a bottle of it, it's going to give me the friggin' charcoal rock to clean my body. I hate those things. Why? What is the point? It's like you're just killing trees. And it's like all I did was just sit there. It was like winning at the slot machine, but it's like the worst slot machine on earth. I hate it.
Jimmy Kimmel made me aware of this. He harpooned CVS. He made a big, huge segment about it. Very hilarious. Yeah, I didn't pay attention to it, but because when the receipts come, I just crinkle them all up and throw them out in the garbage. I try not to litter, but sometimes I just throw it on the floor.
Don't worry, you're not missing anything.
It's unbelievable the fact that CVS is one of the worst offenders in terms of the length of the receipts. Yeah, it's bad. The level of receipts, the length is getting longer and longer, and even when you buy one thing, it is ridiculous, and it's just a waste of time and a waste of paper. And yeah, that could be frustrating. And I don't know how, in this day and age, why we can't conserve in terms of receipts. These places should just be like, if you want some coupons, give us your email and send them there.
Dude, the worst part is I'll buy like a tub of protein powder or something, and it'll give me a thing for Monistat. Those two things aren't even close to being the same thing, right? Not unless I'm a female bodybuilder who has a yeast infection. And I'm not that. I got deflated balls. You just said it. I don't know, man. I don't get it. I hate it. It drives me insane.
Before we start getting into all things Detroit sports, I'm just curious to get your reaction regarding one thing. American Sniper came out, huge movie. The movie's going to earn a lot of awards, and there's been now lots of talk on both sides of the fence, liberals and conservatives, really sparked by Michael Moore and Seth Rogen's tweets regarding quote-unquote snipers. And it's kind of brought about a little bit of a discussion regarding, are really snipers cowards because they don't look at their opponents face-to-face? And, you know, liberals are kind of hinting at, hey, we really shouldn't be giving all credit and respect to snipers because they are individuals who who kill people at will, and they have to kind of have that mentality of not respecting human life. On the other end, conservatives are like, you know what? These are men that serve our country, and you should not be knocking these individuals. And that's why there was the premise of The American Sniper is, I haven't seen the movie, but I can kind of glean the fact that it's about one of the top snipers in the world and his response and his psychological state when he comes back from the war and possibly how people treated him. Just quickly, before we start talking sports, your thoughts on snipers, and do you think that Michael Moore was wrong in really tweeting about snipers not exactly being heroes?
I'm going to go see this movie because the wife really wants to go see it. It looks really interesting. I think people like Michael Moore, Seth Rogen, I just think you need to be quiet. I think you need to recognize what these men do and what they sacrifice, and not just putting their physical lives on the line, but their mental lives, because when they come home, they're not the same person. I have a couple friends who have served numerous tours of duty, and they're not the same people. They're not fun to necessarily be around when they come home because of all the trauma that they've experienced. I think that if you want to protest or you want to be an activist against something, then you need to be an activist against the Congress, the House of Representatives, the president, everybody who makes the call to send these men over into war and these women over into war. If you want to sit there and you want to protest something, protest them. Protest them for putting us in situations where we have to go and defend other countries and where we make enemies because we're over there fighting against people who either want us there or don't want us there, depending on what the situation is. So if you're going to be upset with those people. Don't sit there and don't take this out on snipers, all right? Or people who are over there fighting. Don't do that. It's uncalled for. It's not right. If you want to be mad at somebody, you want to be mad at something, be mad at the system and protest and speak out against that.
Great points. The controversy was sparked by really individuals that I don't think really think of the consequences and the impact of what they say and how it really can hurt the troops over there, and it can hurt them. It can hurt troops' morale. When they come back, they want support. They want to feel like that the work that they're doing is worthwhile. And when people tweet like that, it kind of really diminishes their motivation. And right now, the enrollment levels are okay, but they could be better. And it's probably sparked by attitudes like this, knowing that the respect level is not where it should be. And the big thing is 18 months to 2-year wait when a member of the Army or Navy comes back, to wait 18 months to 2 years to get help. That's really ridiculous. You got to treat these guys better and with more respect.
The mental health system is horrible. Also, think about this. For every life that they take, they're probably saving a dozen more. So when you look at it that way, they are heroes. They are protecting their unit. They're protecting the good of, I guess, the U.S. forces, depending on what interests lie there.
We got a great podcast. Thank you, everyone, for downloading. On this episode 76, the radio play-by-play voice of our Detroit Red Wings, Ken Cal, joins us, breaking down the Red Wings' first half, talking about our interesting goaltending situation, and giving us his thoughts regarding the Red Wings' play in the first half of the season. And we're looking forward to chatting with him in this podcast. We're going to talk about a significant change for the Tigers, fan favorite, a player that lots of fans were devastated left the Tigers. Don Kelly is no longer with us. He signed a minor league contract with the Marlins.
DK Broiler.
And Twitter.
DKB, baby.
Don Kelly is not with us anymore. What are we going to do? The roster, the 25th man, is no longer there. And also, too, Max Scherzer signed for $210 million and is going to get paid boatloads of money for the next 15 years. Because I was really surprised that this fan base is so loyal to Don Kelly. And it quickly shifted like that to Max Scherzer's greedy. He turned down an offer, gambled on himself, turned down $144 million, and the team offered him $210. I have the utmost respect for Scherzer because he put his balls on the table. He gambled. He could have been one pitch away from ending his career, and he was able to cash in $210 million. And Washington was creative in giving him a huge signing bonus and spreading out the money. So on average, they're only giving up $15 million a year. Yes, when he's
I didn't even know you could sign contracts like that.
I didn't either.
Apparently, Bobby Bonilla has something like this where he earns $1 million until like 2029. I think he's like one of the only other players who has a contract like this. It's ridiculous the way they got all fancy and fixated with these numbers.
And then when you ask on Twitter, should the Tigers possibly have done that or been willing to do that, people are like, no, that's horrible. In the short term, if Washington gets one World Series, every penny is worth it. I'm shocked that people are calling Max Scherzer greedy. I'm shocked at the outrage that Don Kelly's gone. I mean, a guy that was a 25th guy with a WAR of like a .1. WAR basically means wins above replacement.
He won you like an inning.
Yeah.
Is what it translates to.
Basically, if
won
he
you
was
like
gone, anybody in his place would have gotten you similar numbers. And everyone loved Don Kelly, and people were saying, well, he's got more memorable moments with the Tigers than Max Scherzer. Let's just keep it in perspective. It's a loss on both fronts, but the loss of Max Scherzer is a big deal, and it's something that we got to talk about. Max Scherzer's joining a rotation that could be sick. But at the same time, Washington can't keep all those pitchers, and potentially Strasburg could be on the market, or Zimmerman could be used as trade bait going forward for Washington.
Or
so they're kind of in a bind.
Dougie Fister.
Or Dougie Fister could be expendable. But what was your reaction Sunday night when you heard Max Scherzer signed a massive 7-year, $210 million contract, second largest only behind Clayton Kershaw?
All right, so it was kind of twofold. Because when I first heard the numbers that were being speculated about, I was like, you're insane. There's no way, right? This can't be possible. That much money? For how long? I started doing the math. You break out your phone real quick and you sit there and you do some real rough math. You're like, $30 million a season? That just seems astronomical. It's crazy, right? And then you're sitting here like, wait, well then, like, how much did the Tigers offer? So then you go back and you see if the offer was really that much more than what the Tigers offered. And you realize, yeah, it is that much more than what the Tigers offered. So you're like, okay, well, I'm not mad at you for taking all that money. And then you're like, all right, so you got that extra year that you wanted. So you sit there, you try justifying him leaving the team is what I ended up doing. I sat there and I tried breaking it down point by point and just to make amends with him leaving the team. And then I sat there and I was like, well, you were kind of prepared for this all along because the Tigers offered him what I thought was a very substantial offer at $144 million for 6 years. And he rejected that. And then basically after that, the Tigers and Max Scherzer just ended all contract negotiations. And so I was kind of prepared for it, but at the same point, I was kind of stunned and stung that he ended up signing with the Nationals. And I was floored by the dollar amount. I mean, that's a ton of money. And then you find out that it's really only $15 million per season, but it's for the next 14 seasons. And I'm like, wait. How the hell is that even possible? How do you do this? Like, I didn't even know that you could legitimately sign contracts like that. I know in the NHL, there are ways that you can kind of get fancy with, finagling numbers. And there are certain things that you can do, with NBA contracts and certain things you can do with NFL contracts, especially with signing bonuses. But then you find out that he's going to get paid all this money over the next 14 years, $50 million of it's guaranteed as a signing bonus. I was like, oh my God.
No, cuz this is baseball.
Crazy.
Every penny is guaranteed. Every penny he's going to get $210 million. It's $50 million he got up front as a signing bonus. But a baseball contract, should he tomorrow fall down or should he blow out his arm in spring training, he will receive every penny.
Dude, that's crazy.
That's
money.
Why if you have kids, don't tell them to play football. You got to tell them to play baseball. Play baseball.
I was floored, man. I was taken aback by how much money that was and the way that they were able to negotiate that contract just stunned me.
So then the question you have to ask is, we know the majority of people say, hell no, the Tigers are great. They made the right choice in terms of walking away. Given the fact that this contract was spread out this way, should the Tigers have made a similar offer or matched it or tried to be creative in keeping Max Scherzer, knowing that we're trying to earn a World Series?
I think so. I think you add that 15th year, you can maybe try to undercut him a little bit, maybe not 210 over the course of 7, maybe do 225 over the course of 7 years, but stretch that out for a 15-year deferment so you're not paying as much off the top. But like you said, in the open, if they win one World Series, it's worth it. I mean, me and you were both born the last time the Tigers won a World Series. But do you remember it? I don't. I was 1 year old. I don't remember it. And I know you don't. So to be able to see the Tigers win a World Series, and this town will go crazy. This town loves nothing more than baseball and football. I don't care that they say that we're a hockey town. This town loves nothing more than those two sports. And this place will go crazy. Downtown will be off the hook if they even get into the World Series again and are able to capture the World Series. It would just explode. It'd be bananas.
Now, cuz if you break it down, I kind of feel like both parties were not going to agree to a deal. Once Max Scherzer wins the Cy Young Award, and then we had a significant chat about it, and he's not considered the ace. This year, Justin Verlander took the mound in Game 1. I kind of think that potentially he could have been burned. He could have felt like, okay, my spot on this team is never going to be number 1. And a lot of fans didn't give him the credit because he kind of conserved his energy. All of us baseball fans watched what Bumgarner did, and we didn't see that with Scherzer. He came out of games. There were situations maybe when he was protecting Leland where he only went 7 innings. He gave up a lot of wins because he had to rely on the bullpen to get 3 innings. And I think he was smart, though. I think he saved himself the wear and tear on his arm, and he's now cashed in. I don't blame him for that. I can understand a player that wants to save himself and wants to earn big money. Look what he did. But I think once he turned down $144 million in 6 years, kind of think the Tigers organization took that as a big slap in the face. And the way kind of it went down, both parties, I think at that point, agreed that he was going to be gone. Unfortunately, the only way the Tigers could have kept him was to match that offer. So I totally disagree. I just think that you don't want to be paying a guy 15 years from now that much money. And the Tigers right now are retooling a little bit, trying to contend for the World Series. But you have David Price. You have some pieces that can be trade commodities. But if you look back, you really think, man, if Dave Dombrowski didn't jump the gun early, giving Verlander and Cabrera huge extensions 2 years early, maybe if he didn't make that Fister trade, maybe if certain things worked out differently, then you could have kept Scherzer and you could have had money, reserved for him. It didn't work out that way. In the end, Max Scherzer's gone. He's going to do well in Washington, but they're expecting him to do well for this season, next season, and possibly that third season. After that contract is just an albatross. It's going to be a huge problem for Washington, but they're making their run, and the Tigers kind of pulled their chips back. They didn't go all in. They're kind of restructuring. They're trying to stay at the table. And with a lot of competition in the AL Central, it's going to be tougher, but I agree with the Tigers. Let him move on. It's just time to part ways, and hopefully the pieces that you brought in, the pieces that you evaluated in terms of Simon, the new pitcher from New York, Shane Green, hopefully they work out and give us some innings.
I think this signing draws a huge spotlight on Dave Dombrowski and his ability to bring players in and trade players away. It becomes a game of what if, all right? So you bring Scherzer in, and Scherzer wasn't supposed to bubble up and be what he became. Everybody in the organization basically had him pegged as maybe a number 3 starter, maybe a number 2. But the guy rose, and he rose, and he rose, and he got it all figured out, and now the guy's an ace. I think we all agree he's an ace. And I think going into next season, he'd have been your 1B, because I think it's David Price, and then I think it would have been Scherzer, then Verlander. But this draws a huge spotlight on Dave Dombrowski in the way he trades pieces away, because now you lose Scherzer. And what do you have? You have nothing to fall back on because you traded away Doug Fister. Doug Fister would fit in real nice right now. You don't have Rick Porcello because you traded him away and you got Cespedes. Out of that giant trade with Fister, Porcello, Ian Kroll, Lombardozzi, all those guys, the only thing you end up with is Yoenis Cespedes, which is a nice piece for your outfield. But you sat there and you hamstrung your starting rotation, you hamstrung your bullpen. For what? A guy who's going to give you some run production, he's going to give you a little bit of power, and he's going to be a little bit better of a fielder, but you just lost a whole bunch. And I think that if you were to sit there and bring in a guy like Scherzer and you were to keep him in the fold, not only do you now still have the number 1 rotation in baseball, but if things aren't working out the way you want them to, you have a piece in David Price, or you wouldn't be able to trade Scherzer and you wouldn't be able to trade Verlander, but you'd have a piece in David Price, or possibly if you'd have kept Doug Fister, you'd have a piece in Doug Fister that you could trade away for more expendable pieces that you could get to sit there and plug into your lineup. Because let's be honest, this team essentially consists of 5 main guys. And without those 5 main guys, this team would be a boat that's just sinking out in the middle of the Atlantic.
So right now, as the pitchers are about to report in a couple weeks, are you kind of sitting like we were last year, kind of disappointed? I'm not as enthusiastic about the Tigers as I used to be, because my mindset is World Series or bust. I can appreciate the Tigers getting into the playoffs. They play a good brand of baseball. But at this point in time, you gotta serve us up a World Series. We've been waiting now.
It becomes draining on your psyche.
It does.
You get tired. Every year you go into the season, you keep thinking World Series or bust, World Series or bust. And you've been thinking this way for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years now? And every year we come away empty-handed. I mean, an AL Central title's nice, and sitting there getting to the World Series is nice, but at some point you got to win it. And I think now this team has too many holes on it, and it still has to address a lot of those needs. I mean, I don't feel really good about Alfredo Simon and Shane Green. I don't know who these guys really are. I don't know what they're going to really contribute. I'm expecting them to sit there and do a little bit better than they did last year, and by all accounts from what I read, they should. But I don't know these guys. I don't know these guys from a hole in the wall, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like this lineup defensively still needs to be tweaked and still needs some help. I think going into next season, Brad Ausmus will assert himself a little bit more, and I think he'll take more of a leadership role in this. I think this past season, I think he really kind of stepped back, and just kind of watched the veterans kind of take command of this team. I think he'll be more hands-on this season, so that might result in a few more wins, but I don't really know what this team is anymore. It's had so many moving pieces that have changed out, and I don't really know if what we got back, if there's a good value on return there.
When you say you don't know what the Tigers are doing, if you look at things, right now they're going to count on players that we don't consistently consider to be superstars to do some things. In the bullpen, should they struggle out of the gate, you can move Simon into the bullpen. He's fit in that role before. Kyle Lobstein could be a guy that can eat up some innings. You're going to count on guys like Albuquerque. You're going to count on guys like Soria, Joe Nathan, to really shore out that bullpen. And he's going to count on guys stepping up.
Who's your closer next season?
It's going to be Joe Nathan.
Hey, that's unbelievable.
Do you feel safe and comfortable with that? I don't.
Listen,
I would like Soria to be.
I know he
but
blew
I don't-
saves, but he did get you a significant amount of saves, and he did improve. We don't know if he was injured throughout the year. Rondon, we don't know what his ceiling is going to be, how he's going to recover from surgery, but he's going to be a guy that they're counting on to eat up some
Dude,
innings.
I feel like he's the Joel Zamaya of this incarnation of the Tigers.
He may not be there,
you
but
always hear about Rondon, the Rondon zone, the Rondoner. You always hear about this guy, but that's my assessment on him.
I think they're taking a step back in terms of the starting pitching, hoping that the offense 2 through 6 looks formidable. You're going to have to deal with
on your offense to go out there and hit 10 runs every game.
No, but if you can get at least 4 to 5 runs a game, clutch hits from J.D. Martinez, Victor Martinez, Ian Kinsler, Miguel Cabrera, hopefully Nick Castellanos improves over the year, and you got Ghosts out there in center field can give you some things. Rajai Davis was a surprise. He put in some runs. He got some key hits. So you got talent. In terms of the hitting, you still are going to be concerned about the pitching in the bullpen, but I think the philosophy is steadily changing to improve the defense, get what you can out of the starters. They're really counting on the Tigers starters being injury-free. If one of those starters goes down, if Sanchez goes down for a period of time, if Verlander struggles, you're going to have some problems, and I think you're going to see them rely on some pitchers like a Kyle Lobstein to come in, step up, and help this team. And we're not used to that. But I don't think that this team has fallen to the point where they're not a playoff team. I think they can get to the playoffs. Right now, though, the part that's worrisome is this a team that can advance out of the first round? And you've seen what happened with the lineup they had last year versus Baltimore. Key mistakes from Ausmus. The bullpen fell apart. They were ousted in the first round. So I think they're a playoff team. They can get a wild card or get to the wild card game. I just don't think that this team is a team that can advance in a playoff matchup right now as it sits.
Would this team make you feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy inside if they went out and signed a guy like James Shields?
Here's the part that's challenging. He's got the moniker of being big game James Shields. We watched him in the World Series. Did you see big game James Shields? He looked like a tiger. He looked like a tiger out there in the playoffs. Now, Kansas City was respectable last year. They were within a couple key hits away from getting that World Series. But big game James Shields is older, 33 years old.
Yeah.
He's going to want 4 to 5 years on a contract. And I just don't see him coming
That's
here.
the problem. I don't know.
He's older.
Yeah, I don't know if you were scared of signing Max Scherzer, who was 30, to a long-term deal. Are you going to sit there and go out and sign James Shields to a long-term deal? I mean,
that's why the Porcello trade really is a head-scratcher. You had a guy that's locked in to give you 15 wins, and you should have just kept him here. I don't know if that trade's going to work out, if that trade for Porcello for Cespedes is going to work out for the Tigers as they hoped. So Cespedes has to step it up, and we have to have JV, Miggy, and Victor Martinez put up some numbers later in their careers. Are they going to do that? That's the tough part. I'm not sure about that. The Tigers right now are kind of in that interesting phase because perception is this team is not as good as it was. Are the fans going to support this team throughout the year should they struggle early on? Are they going to draw 3 million fans this year with this team? I think they can if they get off to an early offensive start.
I think they will too.
I think this Tigers fan base is really supportive and really loyal. I don't think they really harp on the team all that much. You got a lot of supportive blog sites. You got a lot of supportive fans. But I just think that you're getting close to really telling the fans, hey, this window is closed based on the early moves. And they're going to have to step it up, and key players are going to have some good seasons. But yeah, going into the 2015 season, I'm not as confident. I'm really excited to see, though, what this team can do with a little bit lower expectation?
I don't know, man. I just feel like there's a lot of things that still need to be addressed and still need to be worked out. And we're kind of late in the free agency period now. So I think the team that we have now is what we're going to go to camp with. And unless there's some movement at the time of camp, I don't really see this team being that much of a threat going forward, especially in the AL. You got to remember, 2 years ago, they won it by 3. Last year, they won the AL by 1. You got the Rays, who have gotten better. Yeah, they've lost some pieces, but they've also added. I think Cleveland's going to be a much better team. I know definitely the White Sox. I think they've kind of got it figured out now, and they're going to be a much better team. So it's going to definitely be competitive.
And you never know. Once we start feeling disappointed, you never know, then this team could take off and gel and be a team that could surprise a lot of people. You never know if Shane Green is a superstar. You never know if J.D. Martinez continues and evolves into a significantly better hitter. Then you got a team that can really do some damage. And as long as Dave Dombrowski can realistically improve that bullpen and can make this team more balanced, then I think we got a chance to compete and play some meaningful games next September. But as we sit right now, we're kind of in that wait-and-see mode, kind of speculating a lot as to how this team is going to look. As spring training progresses, we will definitely talk to the key figures in the Tigers organization, breaking down the Tigers, hoping that this team can fulfill our dreams and make a strong playoff run in 2015. All right, stay with us. After the break, we are going to play a round of Jock Jams. The Doc has a lot of questions, and the Jock is ready to deliver. Stay with us. Jock Jams coming up next.
This is the Detroit Pistons dancing usher. My name is Shannon. And when I'm not at the Palace, I'm listening to Detroit Sports Podcast. Log in, listen in, have some fun with us. Love this group. Love the station.
I also want to let you guys in on a great website, uofmdiehards.com. Check out their website. They got great blogs, great articles dedicated to all things University of Michigan. They have interviews with Michigan commits. They cover all sports. They break down breaking news in regards to Michigan. Check out their website, uofmdiehards.com. DocNJock, check out their website quite a bit. If you're a fan of Michigan, if you're a Michigan diehard, there's no better website to check out than uofmdiehards.com.
I'm go blue, baby.
Thanks, everyone, for downloading the Detroit Sports Podcast. We're dedicated to talking about all things Detroit sports. Adam and I love doing this podcast every single week. If you like what you hear, subscribe via iTunes, or you can subscribe on Stitcher if you're an Android user. There's no excuse for not downloading this podcast. It's available on several different platforms. Detroit Sports Podcast. If you like what you hear, tell one or two other people, and we're continuing to grow this thing week after week. People are taking notice. They're picking up the phone, answering our calls. Lots of people want to talk to Doc and Jock, breaking down Detroit sports. Jock, my friend, are you ready to tackle some great sports questions?
Got my tinfoil, coach.
AFC, NFC championship weekend did not fail to deliver. The early game, Seattle versus Green Bay, looked like it had a chance to be a dud, but Seattle, with a miraculous comeback, took it down in overtime. The second game, New England crushed and dominated Indianapolis like most thought, but some controversy arose from that AFC championship game. What was your reaction to championship weekend?
I really enjoyed the Green Bay-Seattle game. I know that for 3.5 quarters, Seattle really didn't show up, but they turned it on there the last quarter and a little bit of that overtime there. I mean, they really tuned it up there. But I enjoyed that game. I didn't really have a problems with Green Bay basically rolling through them for the first 3.5 quarters and Seattle sleepwalking through it. I thought that the New England-Indiana game, I thought that was a complete dud.
What the hell is that about?
Indiana wasn't even competitive, and now there's this controversy about New England deflating balls, and I enjoyed the first half of it. I thought the second half left a lot to be desired. I'm ready now for a Super Bowl that will be of cataclysmic events and proportions here. I need a Super Bowl that is outstanding and just keeps me on the edge of my seats, because I fell asleep through the first half of the Green Bay game and I slept through the entire New England game. You know, I had a little bit of life there for a quarter and a half of the Seattle game, but that was about all I had, man. So I thought they were duds. I thought it all the weekend just and halfway through that New England game, I had to shut it off. I just couldn't take it anymore.
Your thoughts on Mike McCarthy, man? Jim Caldwell was like, why is everyone complaining about his conservatism? I don't get it. Dude did not challenge Richard Sherman with one arm. They did not look like they were going to be aggressive once they had the game in hand.
Okay, I didn't understand why you get to 4th and 1 on basically the 1-inch line, and you don't run a play. You kick a field goal. You do it twice. I thought for sure one of those 2 times he needed to run a play there. He needed to make an attempt to score a touchdown. I think you score a touchdown there, that game is just changed from that point on. Instead, you settle for 2 field goals. I think if you go up 10-0, even if you only go up 3-0, you're at least showing that you're aggressive and that you want to score. He basically sat back and he let the defense dictate to him what's going to happen for this entire game. And on top of it, Green Bay's defense played very well. They looked good. Up until the last 5 minutes of that game, Green Bay's defense looked good. They sat there, they forced them to turn the ball over, they made plays when they had to, they forced 3 and outs. Instead, Mike McCarthy is playing that game with the tight butt cheeks and doesn't go for the jugular. Instead, he sits there and kicks field goals. I didn't understand that. And then you see Richard Sherman running around. I'm not sure if it's broken. I'm not sure what he has going on, but that arm is not good. And he doesn't even bother to throw at Jordy Nelson. And I know Jordy had a lot of big drops early on, but you don't even bother throwing at Jordy Nelson? I didn't get it. I didn't understand the play calling. I didn't understand what he was doing. I know that you're in Seattle and it's supposed to be the toughest place to play, but you're sitting there and you were basically housing them 16-0. You kept them on their heels for 3 quarters, and then you sat there and you let up.
And then the GOAT,
Green Bay blew that game.
And then the GOAT that Wisconsin will never forget, tight end Bostic on the onside kick. How does the ball hit your head? By all accounts, by everyone that was talking, his job was to block, but he felt like he could catch the ball. Dude made a huge mistake. Jordy Nelson was right there. All he had to do was maybe swat it out of bounds. You can't do that on the special teams. And it just goes to show you, special teams has a place in football. And a lot of times when key mistakes are made, it's in special teams. And how big a GOAT is Bostic? I don't know. I think he should have been cut by now.
Dude, he's on suicide watch. Let's be honest.
No, he's not. Actually,
Did you see
his
the
reaction has been
conference?
classic. He's like, I won't let this define me. He's given all the PC answers.
Yeah, that's
but
all PC answers, dude. That guy looks like he wants to end it. Like, keep all the sharp objects away from him because he might cut his wrist or stick one in his neck. You got to be careful with that guy. He's on edge. But if he would have just did his job, that ball would have hit Jordy Nelson right in the numbers. I know Jordy would have came up with it. I know he would have. But instead, Bostic goes up and tries to make a play on it, goes through his hands, off his helmet. Seattle ends up recovering, and the rest is history. One of the greatest comebacks in NFL history for a conference game, for a conference championship game. So just do your job, man. Don't try to do more than what you have to do. You're out there for a reason. Do your assignments. You see what happens when you do your assignment? You roll like the Patriots do. Patriots, those guys know exactly what they have to do, and they don't try to do more than what they have to.
Now, lots of people are going to say, hey, this whole deflating balls situation is going to maybe be a bigger deal. Maybe once they investigate after the season, maybe some picks could be lost. But if New England is found to have intentionally cheated, deflating balls to gain an advantage, should they play in the Super Bowl? Should the league take an extraordinary step and do something that has never been done before by punishing a team and just not allowing them to play in the biggest game? Because this is really a serious offense. And a lot of people are saying, listen, New England scored so many times that they were pounding the ball into the ground with all the touchdowns that the balls were deflated. But these balls are checked. It could be a mistake. It could be a ball that has corrective error in it. It could be a deformed ball. A lot of things have to happen. And how do you prove intent? That's going to take time, and I don't think that the league is going to move that fast in this situation. I think they're going to investigate. I think if they are found guilty, it'll be way after the Super Bowl. But if New England has a second cheating offense, we all remember Spygate and now deflated balls, this has a chance to seriously impact the perception of the New England Patriots.
If you're the NFL, I don't even know how you go about addressing this in taking corrective action to fix this problem. If New England wins the Super Bowl, God forbid, then what do? You strip them of the Super Bowl and you give it to Seattle? Then how is that fair to Indianapolis, who should somehow be honored for a victory that they didn't even win? So I just think this is a giant mess. I think there's got to be a better system of checks and balances that the NFL has to have going into these games. Maybe put an on-field official who sits there and checks the balls before they go on the field. Something has to be done. I'm not sure what. There's people who are much smarter than you and I who are going to have to address this situation. But I don't know if you can sit there and penalize this New England team and then prevent them from either playing or winning the Super Bowl. I don't know how you would even go about fixing that.
All right, cuz. This has been a very interesting week in terms of the turnover for Detroit teams. We lost Don Kelly, Max Scherzer. Now, the Lions announced earlier this week, 14-year veteran Dominic Raiola no longer with the team. His antics will be missed. He was a tough and rugged individual, sometimes had beefs with the fans, but overall, he was really a tough guy to really get behind. He was one of the players that was there throughout the entire Millen era, and he had some significant incidents off the field, and obviously with his suspension late this year, really a tough guy to get behind. But your reaction to Dominic Raiola not being retained by the Detroit Lions?
I think he'll go down as an underappreciated player. I know a lot of people are like, see ya, but I really feel like he's going to be, you'll look back on the Dominic Raiola era and you'll say, you know, for what they had around him, for what he had to deal with, for the culpability that he had in a lot of plays and a lot of mistakes that he made, he was still a good enough player that started 14 years. I mean, he played every single game and took over for a Pro Bowl center. And he did it, I don't want to say he did it admirably, but he did a good enough job to where if this team had more pieces around him, he would have been competitive. So it's a little bit bittersweet to see Dom go. I'm excited to see what they're going to bring in and how they're going to retool this offensive line. Hopefully, it's a lot better than it was this past year. Hopefully, we get back to where we were, 2 years ago. Dominic Raiola, he's a funny case because for everything good he did, he always had a lot of negatives, and he was a fan favorite to hate on. So, I don't know. I'm not sad to see him go, but I'm not happy to see him go either. It'll be interesting to see how this team kind of works its way out going forward.
Well, the Travis Swanson era is about to begin. Let's see if Martin Mayhew made the correct draft choice. All right, cuz the Pistons, man, formidable opponents, these Atlanta Hawks. They are just like right now the hottest team in the NBA, and the Pistons are just having a tough time dealing with them. Andre Drummond sat in the entire fourth quarter. Dude continues to struggle at the free throw line. My God, he's still not getting any better. But I was right last week. I had said that reports came out that the Lakers had come a-calling the Pistons, and the Lakers inquired about picking up Brandon Jennings and Greg Monroe. So my question is this. Brandon Jennings has been a player that's been polarizing here in Detroit. Greg Monroe is a free agent at the end of the season. The Pistons, all credit. They deserve all credit for their valiant effort. But if you're realistically looking to improve this team long-term, would you consider selling Brandon Jennings, Greg Monroe, maybe at their highest point right now in the season, and looking to improve this team significantly going into next season?
If by improve this team, you mean I'm getting top first-round draft picks, or I'm getting players who will be able to be plugged in and will make an immediate contribution, then yes, I'm for it. But I think you keep Brandon Jennings, I think you keep Greg Monroe, and I think you sit there and you let this team continue to build and grow. Brandon Jennings has come out and said that no other coach has been able to get through to him the way that Stan Van Gundy has. And you're seeing the fruits of that labor now. You're seeing what he's able to do. The guy's going out there, he's distributing the ball, he's scoring the basket, he's becoming a team leader in that locker room, which is something that he's never done in his career. I mean, he's still a young guy. So his development and his maturation process over, I'd say, the last 15, 16 games has been impressive. Imagine a whole year. Now imagine 2 whole years of tutelage under Stan Van Gundy. Imagine what that's going to get you. Do you remember when Chauncey Billups came here? Nobody wanted Chauncey. Everybody thought that that guy was a shoot-first point guard who wasn't able to be coached and wasn't able to do anything right. And then you sat there and you gave him Larry Brown. Larry Brown transformed him from a shoot-first point guard to a guy who would just take over games and knew when to pass the ball, knew when to shoot the ball, knew how to set up his team and get the best out of his team, and became a leader for that club, inside and out. You've seen what happened when Chauncey Billups got traded away. That team fell apart. It disintegrated. I think you might have something similar if you do that with Brandon Jennings. I think another year or two underneath Stan Van Gundy, I think you're going to see a more complete player. You're going to see a guy who will be able to take this team underneath his wing, and he'll be able to do what he wants and impose his will on this team and on the basketball court. And now you couple that with a guy like Greg Monroe. I know he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year, but if you were able to get him to sign again and you get him to come back and play, and I think there's your big three. You know, you got Jennings, you got Drummond, who still needs a lot of work and some more development, and Greg Monroe. I think Greg Monroe is now more comfortable in his role. You can see what he can do. I mean, the guy's a presence on defense. The guy's a presence on offense. He has no problem blocking shots, rebounding the ball, and scoring the basket. So I think you try to keep these three together and you try to mature them and you try to help them grow. And you do this all underneath Stan Van Gundy's leadership and guidance. I think this team will be formidable, and I think that they'll contend in the East.
My man, that's why we have you here. Great job on Jock Jams. Oh man, I'm just so excited though the Pistons are playing a much better brand of basketball. I'm so excited that a guy like Stan Van Gundy is the head of this team. He's been given so much praise by several different managers, owners, and other head coaches because of the brass move that he made getting rid of Josh Smith. And credit to ownership because they had to sign off on that, giving him that money to walk away. So the Pistons, still a must-watch team. They're playing very well. They're competitive in these games, and the Pistons have a bright future, I believe, with Stan Van Gundy. Great round of Jock Jams, cuz. Now, the reason why we love doing this podcast, we get a chance to talk to people who are in the know, who are significant figures here in Detroit. And I know, cuz, you are a big hockey guy, so I know you're going to be excited to have Ken Kal on the line next. Ken Kal, radio voice of the Detroit Red Wings, is coming on the DocNJock program to break down the Red Wings in the first half of the 2014 season. Stay with us. Definitely check out the guys at the Detroit Sports Nation, DetroitSportsNation.com. Great website. They are unbelievable. They are killing it on Facebook. Give them a like at their Facebook page, Detroit Sports Nation, and definitely check out their website, DetroitSportsNation.com. Our collaboration with them has been excellent, and they continue to be a strong presence here on the podcast because they bring the noise and they have great content. So thank you guys again. We can't thank you enough.
You're the future of our business, and I know when you guys have a podcast like this, our future is in good hands.
You got to check out their stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed by it. You guys have probably one of the better ones I've seen in the country.
Wow.
In a short period of time, you've done good work. Look at me kissing your hand.
I know. On the phone with us right now is the voice of your Detroit Red Wings, Ken Kal. Ken, how you doing?
Doing good, Adam and John. How's everything today?
Everything is great. So we're going to talk about these Red Wings. Kind of surprising for me the way that they've been playing as of late. What do you think's been the biggest difference this year as opposed to, say, the last 3 years?
Well, I think if you look at over the last couple of years, injuries have played a key part in hindering the Detroit Red Wings from going deep in the playoffs, I think. I always liked their team. I thought they've been strong, but the problem is they were injured. And anytime you lose 500 or 400 games lost to injury, you're not going to go far, especially in the playoffs. But this year's been a little bit different. They're under 100 man games lost to injury. They've been staying relatively healthy, and I think one more year of the youngsters developing really makes a big difference on this club.
How many 20-goal scorers do you see on this team? I mean, Tatar's already has 21. I realistically see about 6, and that's something that this team hasn't done or accomplished since the 2005-2006 season when they had 8 20-goal scorers. I mean, they've been putting the puck in the net.
Well, you're right about that, and I think last year you look at this team, and I think they only had one 20-goal scorer, and it's hard to make the playoffs when you only have one 20-goal scorer. But you're right, it seems like the lines are more balanced right now, and Nyquist, Tatar, Riley Sheahan's having a good year. Johan Franzen's been hurt, but he has the potential before the season comes to a close to reach that 20-goal plateau. Of course, you got Zetterberg and Datsuk too. So, you're looking at 5, maybe 6 guys that can score 20 goals. But what I'm really impressed with is the overall team defense. And I think that's a big factor in the success this season with Detroit. They're very stingy in their own zone. They really work hard. They use their speed to their advantage. And one of the things that I've noticed this year as opposed to last year is they don't turn the puck over as much, especially in their own zone. Plus, when you have a good power play, it's one of the best in the National Hockey League, and they've scored more power play goals than any team right now in the NHL. And you've got a terrific penalty kill. You're going to win a lot of hockey games. So that and staying away from regulation losses, and the Wings have certainly done that. They've only lost 11 games in regulation this year. You're going to pick up points in each and every game, and that really helps.
Speaking of team defense, Kyle Quincey was a move that was made in the offseason that most fans groaned about and were quite upset about. What have you seen from him? Because he's been a real positive on the defensive line. What have you seen from him that's been a little bit different than last year?
Well, I just think he's pretty steady back there in the blue line, and ever since he was teamed up with Danny DeKeyser, he's been terrific. And they've got a good blend right there. I mean, Danny DeKeyser is a smooth skating defenseman. He can rush the puck. Quincy plays a little more of a physical style, especially in front of the net. And Quincy's had 5 points in his last 4 hockey games. So, and his plus minus is +2. So I've seen him really, really play well with Danny DeKeyser. I think that's one of the key factors for him. He's been staying relatively healthy. And, he's always been a really good defenseman. I mean, I know fans in Detroit sometimes criticize Kyle Quincey, but, when I saw him play with L.A. and with Colorado, he's getting a lot of minutes. He was on their top pair, especially in Colorado. I mean, he played really well. But, I just think with the defensive system that the Red Wings use now and have implemented really fits his game. And, he's just been terrific, I think, especially with Danny DeKeyser there.
On the line with us, Ken Cal, your voice of the Detroit Red Wings. Ken, obviously one of the most talked about positions in sports in Detroit is the goaltender position. Jimmy Howard arguably was having one of his best seasons. Unfortunately, he's out with injury. But young gun Petr Mrazek has stepped in, has played remarkably well. Talk about Petr Mrazek, and do you think potentially he could be a starter in the next season or two, upheaving Jimmy Howard with that contract?
Well, Mrazek's been terrific, and I know he was disappointed at the end of the exhibition schedule or the preseason schedule, and he thought that he played well enough to earn a spot on this team. And obviously he was sent down to Grand Rapids, wasn't happy about it. You got to love his competitive nature. But again, it's a long season, and there's always injuries to goaltenders or to skaters or defensemen in the NHL, and he just had to wait his turn, and obviously now he's getting it. And he's been pretty rock solid back there in goal. And I've always said that it's good, healthy competition whenever you have two goaltenders, or now three with Gustafsson, even though he's on the mend right now, but you've got three goaltenders now competing for two spots. And I think the future is bright for Petr Mrazek. I still think Jimmy Howard's the number one goaltender, and he will be the number one goaltender for this team. But, who knows what's going to happen down the stretch run, if there's any injuries or what. Jimmy Howard certainly is going to get a majority of the games. Gustafsson, once he gets back, I think will be the backup, and then Mrazek will play more in Grand Rapids. But again, that can change. So just to answer your question, I think he's got a really, really bright future. He's going to be a terrific Red Wing for a long period of time. It's just one of those waiting games. It was kind of similar to when Jimmy Howard was coming up in the Wings and Chris Osgood was ahead of him. He just had to wait his turn, and sooner or later Mrazek's going to get his turn, and down the road he'll be a number one goaltender.
Ken, I know the other night after Mrazek sat there and led the Wings to a 5-2 victory, there was a lot of talk on Twitter and a lot of bantering going back and forth with us and some of the people who we discuss sports with about possibly trading Jimmy Howard. Do you see a market for a Jimmy Howard trade, or do you see a market maybe for a Petr Mrazek trade to help solidify some needs for these Detroit Red Wings to make them a locked-in Cup contender?
I don't really see any potential movement for this club right now, and I don't think that this team needs to make any trades right now. That's just my opinion. I think Howard's your goaltender, and he's going to be here. He's got the contract, and as we mentioned before, Mrazek's the backup, so is Gustafsson. And really, when you think about it, the Red Wings are only 6 points or 5 points behind the top team in the NHL right now, the Anaheim Ducks. So when you make a trade, obviously you want to improve your club, but the way the team has played so far, I don't see where you really need some strength. Obviously, I think at the trade deadline, you're always looking for a defenseman because you never have too many of them, especially a right-handed shooting defenseman. And, there's a possibility by the trade deadline that, maybe the Red Wings make a deal to try and get somebody to help out there in the blue line. But really, the way they played all season long, they seem to play well as a group. They've got 4 balanced lines, a terrific penalty kill and power play. So I don't think you need to make really many deals. I think the team that you have right now is a team that, you can live with and really go far in the playoffs.
All right, Kenny, let's talk business here. So the Wings have a coach who will be a free agent at the end of the year, and Toronto's making moves, blowing coaches out left and right, which is really not a huge surprise as they just seem to fire coaches at will. But they're loading up to make a push for Mike Babcock. At some point, doesn't there have to be some kind of movement on the Detroit Red Wings front to secure Babcock so they don't lose him to the Toronto Maple Leafs?
No, and the reason why I say that is because Mike Babcock made it perfectly clear at the start of the season that if he didn't sign a contract before the start of the season, he was going to wait until after the season to get the deal done or to figure out where he's going to go or if he's going to stay. So I don't think there's any rush right now to get anything done. I'm sure he and Kenny Holland talk from time to time, but again, he didn't want his status hanging over this team throughout the course of the regular season and going into the playoffs. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And really, there is no rush. I just think that once the season's over, management, ownership will have a conversation with Mike Babcock, and that's the time that they're going to hammer out a deal. So I don't think, obviously, this isn't going to be played out in the media at all. It's going to be a situation where once the season's over, they'll get together and figure out where they want to go.
Do you see any reason why Babcock isn't a Red Wing next season?
I think that if you look at what the Red Wings have down the road, I think they're set up for a long-term success. And, I know Mike Babcock likes to win, and I think if you look at all the players that you have right now that are developing, this team is set up for a bright future and a long run, I think. And so you got a lot of young guns on this club. You've got players in the minor leagues like Mantha and Sproul and Jensen and Willette, who's playing right now with this club, and you've got Petr Mrazek that you talked about. And, in the wings, you've got Dylan Larkin, who's going to be, I think, a terrific player in the NHL one day. Pulkkinen, you've got a lot of talent there. So this is a young team, but a team that I think can be successful for a long period of time.
Ken, thank you for giving us a few minutes. We're going to get you out of here on this. The Red Wings broke ground on a new stadium that's going to be open in the next few seasons. Talk about your excitement getting out of the Joe Louis Arena. By all accounts, the time has come for that arena to be put to bed. And talk about your excitement, ready to work in a brand new arena, hopefully with some new digs, some nice accommodations for the broadcasters.
Well, you know what? It's been exciting for me personally. I've lived in Detroit my whole life, so I remember the days back at the old Olympia, and I really enjoyed that old building. And, when Joe Louis was built, it took a while for me to really get used to Joe Louis Arena, but, I know it's outdated. However, I will say this, there's been a lot of history here, just like it was in Olympia. And those are the types of things as a broadcaster I'm going to remember, all the Stanley Cup championships and the games and the players that played here at this historic venue. But on the other hand, I'm excited about all that's taking place with the new arena. And it's not just only going to be the arena, it's going to be a whole district. And there's going to be so many things for fans to do so that they can come early and, eat at restaurants and walk around and enjoy the experience prior to the games or even after the games as well. So it's going to be fun. And as far as, a new arena, it's going to be exciting, and I can't wait for it to happen. But on the other hand, it's going to be a sad day when they leave Joe Louis Arena because, as I mentioned, sometimes it's not up to date, but on the other hand, there's a lot of history and tradition here that I always will remember.
You can catch Ken Kal and the Red Wings broadcast, 97.1 FM, each and every Red Wings game. Ken Kal, thank you for joining us. We hope to chat again just before maybe the Red Wings embark on a long playoff rush. Thank you, Ken. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Adam and John. Have a good day, all right?
All credit to Ken Kal. Greatly appreciate his time breaking down the Red Wings. Bright future for the Red Wings. I do got a good feeling that this team can potentially get to the conference finals. It's going to depend on goaltending and defense and what shakeup and moves the Red Wings could make at the trade deadline. I'm excited to see. All right, now to give everybody an update regarding the NFL Pick'em Challenge. Doc was gripping. Jock tied it up. Just based on the fact that Green Bay was able to cover. Great game. They were able to come back. Seattle was not able to win by more than 7. So Jock tied it up. Then I was gripping. I'm like, man, getting points is an advantage in these picks. But New England held serve. They crushed Indianapolis. So as we sit, the Doc has all the power. I'm up by 3. The Super Bowl will be 1 pick, and it's going to be up to me to decide because I have the first pick. So strategy would dictate whatever I pick, Jock's going to have to pick opposite, and it's for 5 points. So it's for all the marbles, as it should be. I am leading by 3. The Doc is leading the NFL Pick'em Challenge by 3. So whatever I do, Jock has to pick opposite. So the ball is in my court. So for the next week, I'm going to be doing research. I'm going to get into my bunker, and I'm going to make the best decision on next week's podcast. Because this matchup is going to be great. This Super Bowl week, these next couple weeks, previewing the Super Bowl is going to be great. These two teams are the best teams in the league, and these are the teams we need to watch and break down going into the Super Bowl. Can't wait.
Should be an explosive matchup. I hope to see Tom Brady do what Tom Terrific does. I think that Seattle defense is going to be prepared for him. It's going to be an interesting matchup because you've got one of the best quarterbacks in all of the NFL going up against one of the best defense in all of the NFL. I feel like this is a little bit reminiscent to last season. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. I look forward to this. It's got to be a lot better than what we've seen this past Sunday. So fingers crossed we get a great matchup. Early spread looks like Seattle +1. I think that line's going to move a little bit. We'll sit there and we'll talk about it next week. So tune in, see who we pick, see who's going to end up donning either a Michigan or an MSU t-shirt at next year's fantasy draft. I think the Super Bowl is going to be great.
Another great podcast, cuz. Love doing this. Love breaking down Detroit sports. So many storylines coming up. And now it's that time of year where we get to break down the Super Bowl, the end of the NFL season. Now we're starting to segue into looking at the Tigers. The Red Wings and Pistons are in full force. Lots of great stories that we can break down here at the Detroit Sports Podcast. Thank you to Ken Kal again for coming on the podcast. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. This has been episode 76 of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Thank you very much.
Go Wings, go Pistons.
What's up, cuz?
You're such a douche.
That's why these two guys here, these are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood.